Hey guys, welcome back to episode number 2 in the Brand Interrupted show. I'm your host, Brittany Hammond, founder of Untamed Lifestyle Business and the Brand Interrupted podcast. I'm a filmmaker and your personal brand strategist. In this episode, I want to talk about a few common mistakes I see when people try and tell their stories online. Tip number 1, your story is not, and I repeat, not a documentary. Don't give a timeline of your story. You really have 3 key points of your story, which I won't so much go into detail today, but you have like a breakdown moment, a rock bottom moment, a redemption, a breakthrough moment, and then kind of the learnable or teachable lesson in the end. And so what you don't want to do is have it, telling all the facts of everything you went through, like I was first interested in this, and then I went to school for this, and then that's the quickest way to put your audience to sleep. The point of a story is that you want to grab your audience and connect them with some emotional charge to your story. And this also brings me to point 2, is when you make your story surface level. I literally was just filming a segment for a documentary, and my coworker said to me, at some points, you were really just skimming parts of your story and you weren't going so much into the detail, but the stronger points of your story is when you got super into it, super involved, emotionally involved, your whole body's in it, and those are the points that were the most interesting because you were interested in what it was you were saying. So try to avoid surface level facts of your story. I think to piggyback on this, the tip number 3 is to really show your story and don't just tell it. So really use those 5 senses. Describe like what was the environment, what was the atmosphere, what was going on, what were you feeling, were there smells around you, were there sounds, like really describe and paint a picture for us to really get transported in your story. And ultimately your story is always going to be one of transformation, so really bring people in through the way in which you're telling the story. I think that's one thing that can make or break a story. It's not just what is your story, but it's how you actually tell your story. Another pitfall I see is when people don't make it concise, when you're overcomplicating things, kind of going all over the place, and it's really hard as an audience to follow exactly it is what you're saying. So when you're telling your story, whether it be your signature brand story or different social stories online, try and map out those key points in your story and make it really concise. Like, in this moment, this happened, and this was the teachable lesson, and this is how it relates back to you, so that your audience can see themselves within your story, because ultimately that's the goal. Because your story is not just about you, but how other people relate back to you. Tip number 4, and again, this piggybacks off of this point, is your story's not about you. It's, of course, you're gonna have elements, it's about you, but it's not about you. So really, really finding ways to, when you're going through, you're making a list of your points, those concise points we were talking about, always flip it back to your audience and say, how does this relate back to them? Ask your audience questions, have people commenting and engaging on what it is you're saying, and see, ask them, does this relate to you? Have you ever experienced this before? The last common mistake I see, and I'm totally guilty of this one, and it's thinking that your story is not important or it's not relevant. I believe that everyone has a story to tell, and it's really our job to tell that story truthfully and to really connect with people. And there's never a story that's really irrelevant. What makes a story irrelevant is if you're not telling it in a way that really is going to reflect back to the audience. So, I would love to hear from you now. Which one of these mistakes or faux pas have you been committing? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more about storytelling, I have a 4-part video series called Brand Your Story. In this training, we're going to cover how to uncover your story within that will naturally attract your dream clients, and different ways that you can express your story both visually and verbally. So click the link below to get access right away. I can't wait to hear your story.